Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT9, and BT9 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a brand new iteration on the D-Brigade's deck. So D-Brigade's is still doing its classic style of thing, where for the most part it's a low to the ground aggro deck, where we're just trying to fill up our trash as much as we possibly can by suiciding our Commandramons into their security, so that way we could lead all the way up into a powerful Darkdramon turn and be able to play him and swing all in one turn. And the deck has lots of different directions that you could take it to really customize it and make it your own. But I think based on the current meta, the style of approach that we want to take with this deck is that more classic style low to the ground aggro approach. And what's making this deck a little bit better versus some of the others is the fact that we actually have room to be able to play big security threats to try to potentially stop the opponent's OTKs. So with all that said and done, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running one copy of Missimon, so this is kind of the flex Digitama of the deck. It could really be whatever you want it to be if you even want to run a 5th Digitama, but I think Missimon is pretty good just because, well, the majority of our deck is D-Brigades, and this synergizes with our D-Brigades, allowing them during your turn to gain plus 1000 DP. But if you just want this to be whatever other Digitama you want, then by all means do so. But as far as the main Digitama of the deck, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Pagumon. So I don't necessarily think the DP is that important, and we would rather go for the consistency, so that way we could try to find our parts and pieces as best as we possibly can, and Pagumon's on delete effect that he's giving our Commandramons really helps with that. So his on delete ability states that we get to reveal the top card of our deck, add it to our hand if it's a black Digimon, otherwise we have to place it to the bottom of our deck to, again, help with the overall consistency on finding some of our Digimon. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Commandramon. So this is the BT3 version of Commandramon, and this, well, is just a Commandramon for us to play, so that's why we're playing him, on top of the fact that he also just has some pretty solid stats, being 2 to hard play and 3000 DP. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Commandramon. So this version is the BT4 version of Commandramon, and this is going to be the most important Commandramon in the whole deck, just because his on delete ability allows us to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and play one Commandramon from among them for free, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this just is a good sticky body to try to help replace himself with our other Commandramons, so that way if the opponent has the ability to delete our Digimon, well, we have the potential to be able to replace themselves. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Commandramon. So this version is the BT5 version of Commandramon, and this is just another low to the ground aggro card in case we want to use him as a Commandramon to attack with, or if we need him, he also has the built-in native ability of blocker, so that way we could also try to defend against the opponent's OTK-based strategies, where if we just have a whole bunch of different blockers on our field, then it might be really hard for the opponent to actually be able to deal damage to us. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Chikurimon. So even though Chikurimon isn't a Commandramon, he's still a really important card just because, well, he's one of the best security threats that we have currently. So he has the nice security ability where at the end of the battle, we get to de-digivolve 1 on one of the opponent's Digimon, and sometimes that de-digivolve actually could take away the OTK potential just because they might need that native ability on the Digimon they're currently using. So this is just a good card to use at shutting that off, on top of the fact that if they're playing a delicate plan and splashing in a delicate plan to try to turn off security options, well, it doesn't turn off security Digimon, making Chikurimon extra valuable. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Hagurumon. So Hagurumon is just a consistency tool for the deck to help not only draw some extra cards, but fill up our trash so that way we could have easier access to Darkdramon's ability. So his on-play ability states that we get to trash out 1 Digimon with Machine or Cyborg in its traits from our hand to be able to draw 2 cards, and, well, all of our Commandramons and D-Brigades, for the most part, are Cyborgs. So this is just a really good card to synergize with how the deck is trying to play, just because we are leaning a little bit more into the Cyborg-based synergies for some extra consistency. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Commandramon. So this is the starter deck version of Commandramon, and this is just, well, another Commandramon for us to use, another D-Brigade for us to use, another Cyborg for us to use, and on top of that, he has the most aggressive stats that we're using on our level 3. So he's just going to be the powerhouse backbone to try to swing with, have live, and to cause consistent pressure onto the opponent. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Sealsdramon. So Sealsdramon is kind of a flex spot of the deck. It could really be whatever you feel like you want it to be, but I do like him as another blocker to try to act as some different forms of defense against the opponent's aggression, on top of the fact that he is also another D-Brigade / Cyborg for us to use and synergize with. And then the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Grumblemon. So Grumblemon is in here just for that hybrid factor, so that way if we have lots of extra memory, then we could use that memory to digivolve on top of our Tamer and swing for the game with. The best Tamer that we have to use him with is going to be Izzy, because Izzy won't be suspending himself, but he is just in the deck mostly for that hybrid alternative win condition. Next, on to the level 6s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Darkdramon. So Darkdramon is still the main win condition of the deck, where we're trying to chip the opponent's security out with our low-level Digimon. Hopefully they're going to be dying, so that way we could just hard slam a Darkdramon, have the rush ability, and be able to play him all in one turn. So what's making him extra playable and why we're not running any level 5s is because we actually don't need to run any level 5s because of his on-play ability, where we get a return up to 5 D-Brigade type Digimon from our trash to the top of our deck in any order to be able to gain 2 for each card returned this way. So if we return the full 5, then we're going to be gaining 10 memory back, effectively making him a level 6 that's only costing 3 to hard play, and the rush ability just allows us to attack. Even though the rush ability isn't going to be transferring onto the level 7, we still just want to use this card as a good aggro tool. And then the last Digimon of the deck in only level 7 is going to be 3 copies of DeathXmon. So DeathXmon is a absolutely insane inclusion in this deck, just because if we wanted to, we could digivolve him on top of a Darkdramon that hopefully survived the swing if we didn't kill the opponent, just for some more aggression and control. And on top of that, if we need to, and the situation presents itself, then we also have the ability to be able to hard play this card for relatively cheap. Just because it has an ability where when you would play this card, we get to reduce the memory cost by 3 for each of the opponent's Digimon and Tamers that they have in play. And because we're not really trying to interact with their stuff, and if they just have a wide field of Tamers, then this card is a really easy level 7 to just hard slam on the field. And he has the ability where on play or when digivolve to de-digivolve 1 on all of the opponent's Digimon and delete all of the opponent's Digimon that's level 4 or lower. So it's just a good board wipe for us to use to try to control the opponent's field in case things get a little too out of hand. And he also has a recursive removal attached to him, making it even harder for the opponent to play the game in a normal fashion, where at the end of the opponent's turn, once per turn, delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. So this is just acting as the removal backbone for the deck and an easy level 7 for the deck to use. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Ultimate Flare. So Ultimate Flare is one of the best black option cards that we have to stop the opponent's OTK potentially. So it has the main ability of de-digivolve 3 on one of the opponent's Digimon, and then we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 3 or less that they have in play. So the main part that we're looking to gain out of this card is that de-digivolve, just because reducing the opponent's stages in a big stack-based deck, because that's what they're trying to do, could be really devastating, and there's no actual way to be able to play around de-digivolve versus something like Iron Fisted Onslaught, where it's just trying to delete the Digimon outright, and sometimes they'll have protection against deletion, so it just doesn't work, but Ultimate Flare does. And then its security ability is the reason why we're also wanting to run this card, just because its security ability activates its main, making it one of the best security threats that we have, along with Chikurimon. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Pride Memory Boost. So Pride Memory Boost is a pretty decent card to synergize with this deck, just because the majority of our cards are, well, for cost and below, and this has the nice ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and then we get to play a black Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less from among them for free, and then the rest go to the trash. So just being able to use this option to not only help fill up our trash for our Darkdramon, but to also be able to spawn a body while this card goes into the battle area for its main ability of delay to gain 2 memory at a later turn, just makes this card have so much value for what the deck is trying to do. And we could use cards like Pride Memory Boost a little bit easier because we have ways like Darkdramon to rig the top of our deck in the form of a Tamer, and that Tamer is going to be 3 copies of Izzy. So Izzy is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing Tamer, so if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just always hard set it to 3, which is pretty good because we need Izzy to be able to consistently utilize Darkdramon's ability, otherwise we have to have alternative ways of starting our turn or being at 3 memory. And then what's making Izzy really good is his on-play ability, where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and if all the revealed cards are black, then we get to gain 1 memory, so he's actually a memory fixing Tamer that's essentially costing us 3 versus 4 like some of the others. And if this is stripped in the security, then this ability does activate, and that could take away a memory from the opponent, which could be pretty valuable as well. And then the last Tamer and last card of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Kazu. So Kazu is an absolutely insane new addition into the deck from EX2, mostly because he's playing with cyborg-based synergies, and, well, all of our low-end are cyborgs. So at the start of our main phase, if we have a Digimon with cyborg or machine in its traits in play, then we get to gain 1 memory, so the more Kazus we have, the more memory we're going to be gaining. Then this card is also helping us cycle through our deck and fill up our trash, which is essentially what we want to do to help accelerate our game plan, where during all turns, when one of your Digimon with cyborg or machines becomes suspended, whether they're blocking or attacking, then we get to suspend this Tamer to draw 1 card and then discard 1 card from our hand to, again, accelerate our overall gameplay and cycle through our deck. And then there's still just a whole bunch of other tech and tools for you to adopt on top of various different sub-packages that you can include. But to try to double down and enforce on what this deck is trying to do, rather than support the deck with a sub-package, we still have lots of different tools that we could use. Like we have some good anti-meta rookies to try to help stop the opponent gain some memory and make it so that they have to pay attention to their Digivolution requirements. Then we still also in black have some other security Digimon. So we have Namimon as a good example, where when he's tripped in the security, even though he won't be doing anything the turn he comes out of our security, it's still the fact that we have a body for us to use to aggress with is what's making him super good. Then we do have the other hybrids that we could use and lean into in case we want to try to include the hybrid sub-package. So Gigasmon is a hybrid that also can block, on top of the fact that if we really wanted to, we could play something like Ancient Volcanomon in case we don't have our level 7 to act as another way to try to interact with the opponent's field, because for the most part, outside of our options, we're not really trying to interact with the opponent's field that much. And a good bridge to be able to use the 2 of these is going to be Ancient Evolution, to be able to go from our hybrids into our Ancient. Then we do have some really good removal in the form of Dark Roar in case we want something a little bit cheaper and more cost efficient to try to interact with the opponent's Digimon. I don't necessarily think it's that needed, but it could still help in certain situations and matchups. Then we do have Parabolic Junk as this deck's version of Hammer Spark. So it's just helping us gain some instant memory as long as we can make sure that our Digimon is going to be dying. Then on top of that, we do have some other really solid anti-meta tech options in the form of Congo and Breath of the Gods to be able to stop a lot of the opponent's aggression and limit some of their actions. Then if you wanted to, because we're still running Tamers, we have the plugins to think about, so we could use the red and blue plugins for jamming and security attack respectively to help with the overall survivability of some of our cards or the overall aggression of some of our cards. And then we still have a slew of different Tamers to think about, all doing various different things and allowing us to line up a different type of tech and tools. So we do have Izzy and Joe as a good duo Tamer if we want to try to draw some extra cards for the opponent deleting our Digimon. And then we do have Rio as a pretty medium tamer. He's not the greatest, but he's not the worst. He is just trying to help it dig for our Dramons, and well, the majority of the D-Brigades are Dramon based. On top of the fact that he could help with the DP boosting of 1000, but again, I don't necessarily think that that DP boost is going to be super important. Then as far as some good off-color tamers to try to splash in some other tech and tools, we do have Kyoshiro to help us draw some cards with our higher levels, on top of being another memory fixer, and we do have Hero as a red tamer to use, again, as another memory fixer that helps us increase the DP of our higher level Digimon, which, again, that might not be super important, but if we're using them as that red source, then that could be pretty good. And as similar reason to just running as many different sources in terms of colors as we possibly can, while trying to gain some extra memory and use them hyper efficiently, then we do have Tai and Kari to lean into to also be able to utilize yellow options as well. But for the most part, this is just my interpretation of what a D-Brigade's deck is going to be looking like in BT9, and I think it's still going to be a pretty decent and effective deck. I think the inclusion of DeathXmon and all of its ways that we could use it makes it a super valuable level 7 compared to all of the others. If you run some various other level 7s like a Zwart Defeat or a Zwart, by all means do so. I just think that DeathXmon is adding the extra control that's being a little bit more proactive while also having a good body on board. With us having different ways to be able to use him makes him super desirable, and he is the best new inclusion into the deck outside of some of the minor tech and tools that we got along the way that just help with our cyborg based synergies. But this being a really solid low to the ground aggro style of deck with some really powerful security threats does make it a kind of decent anti-meta deck for you to think about if you're trying to stop a lot of the opponent's potential OTKs, and this is even good against some control-based decks just because we have ways of refreshing our deck so we don't deck out, on top of having some sticky bodies with our rookies being able to potentially replace themselves with a lot of room for customization to be able to fit into various different metas that you might be playing against. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.